Liberia heals. You know, you're speaking to a people, to a nation of people who are, you know, overcoming very trying time in history. Let's say to the Liberian people in general, what do you want to say in terms of healing from some of the worst things, atrocities that, you know, have happened on the face of the earth?
Well, as we know, Liberia is still recovering from civil war. Many of the other African nations have had civil war. The people are still recovering. One of the things that I would like to do in Liberia and in the other places where wars have been had is go in and conduct therapy, you know, help our people heal. They need to process those losses. They need to process that trauma. They cannot be expected to just suppress it. In order for Liberia to be a healthy nation, people have to regain their mental health. That trauma is not going to disappear. Okay, it has to be processed and it has to be dealt with. So it is very important that the Liberian government not turn a deaf eye to the psychosocial, emotional, and spiritual needs. The psychosocial, emotional, and spiritual needs of the Liberian people. That some sort of government initiative be put in place, and I certainly would be willing to volunteer my time to help our brothers and sisters, our children, and our elders process the evils of the Civil War, process the pains and the losses of the Civil War. If Liberia is to be a happy and healthy nation, the people got to be happy and healthy. And all health begins with mental health. If people are not mentally healthy, then they won't be motivated to be spiritually healthy, physically healthy, or healthy in any other way. If the people are sick, then the families are sick. And if the families are sick, then the institutions are also sick. So it is important that we start a Civil War psychological rehabilitation initiative where we have people who really need to talk and really have something that they need to process, be able to get the help that they need. I would certainly be willing to help folks who volunteer or be employed by the government to actually do short-term brief therapy with trauma survivors from Liberia's Civil War.
You got a chance to speak with some people and hear some of the war stories and testimonies and things that Liberians went through. What would you say to discourage war, you know, in Liberia again at this time?
Tolerance and respect. All violence is the result of people who were not able to bring about a change diplomatically. Violence, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, is the voice of oppressed people. When we descend into violence, it's because the diplomatic strategies have broken down. The logical, rational, humane process has been by the wayside. And so for us to prevent violence, we have to continue to communicate with each other, be tolerant of one another, and never give into our own personal emotions. Also, impatience breeds a lot of violence. When people get impatient and don't want to wait anymore, that's when they get upset, they get angry, they get frustrated, and all those emotions spill over into physical violence. So the best way to prevent violence is to try to be committed more to the diplomatic process, keeping the lines of communication open. That's another thing. We tend not to communicate with each other. When communication lines break down, people start making assumptions about what the other person is doing, what the other group is doing, what the other organization is doing. And what we can do to prevent that is by keeping the communication open. Never cut off communication or the chance for it with your brothers and your sisters, because when you do, we become isolated groups, almost like gangs rather. And you know, gangs, they don't communicate. The only time they communicate is when they fight, and we don't want to do that. So the way to overcome that is to keep